You are watching a simple way to understand ascension using symbols and archetypes. My name is Goodall, and before I begin, I just want to say you shouldn't blindly believe anything I'm going to share with you right now. I'm not a priest, I'm not a pastor. I'm a human being who has discovered some fundamental, profound spiritual truths, and I want to share them with you today. When I'm speaking of the word ascension, I'm using a word synonymous with enlightenment, absolute happiness, the end of correction, freedom and liberation, and any other term that represents ascending to higher dimensions. But when I mention the word ascension, I'm mentioning all of those terms collected into one. When I think of the idea of enlightenment, I think of the knowledge of self, the knowledge of oneness, the knowledge of the fact that we are the higher self. Ascension is both enlightenment, knowledge of self, and a liberation of karma. And I'll talk a little bit about what I believe karma means and what that means for all of us throughout the video. So if you watched my last video, you probably remember me talking about the Tetragrammaton. The last video was a simple way to understand God. And in that video, I explained the symbol, the Tetragrammaton, the six-pointed star, the hexagram, the seal of Solomon, the Star of David. And I talked about how this symbol represents the star of the macrocosm. Or in other words, the star of the big everything. And again, that term is Tetragrammaton. This symbol represents the four Hebrew letters Yod, He, Vav, He. And I'm pronouncing them the way that I learned them. There are other ways to pronounce them, and you can't really see the light over here, but this says the star of the macrocosm. Again, it's Yod, He, Vav, He. My Hebrew is not perfect. I'm self-taught, so you have to have forgiveness for me, hopefully. And this star represents God, Creator, conscious universe, the all, the everything. The other symbol I talked about in that video was the Pentagrammaton. And if you want to check out that video, you can find a link to it in the description of this video. Again, it's called A Simple Way to Understand God. And so this star, the Pentagrammaton, or the pentagram, is the star of the microcosm, also known as the Pentagrammaton. And then the other little diagram I use at the bottom is our stickman friend, which represents us, the human being. So you can kind of imagine the Pentagrammaton as the higher self, the medium between us and Creator, God, or conscious universe, and the Tetragrammaton as God, Creator, or conscious universe, and we are down here as human beings. So the Pentagrammaton represents the five Hebrew letters, Yod, He, Shin, Vav, He, which together create the word Yeshua, the root word of the word Jesus. I'm not going to get into that too much in this video. You can check that out in the last video. And so this star represents our higher self, our Christ self, our Krishna self, our authentic self, our Atman self, our Horus self, whatever you prefer, our Yeshua self. It's our higher self. And so some of the other ways, another way that we can imagine this whole diagram is that we, the human being, are sort of like here, and the Pentagrammaton is like what we're inside of, and then the Tetragrammaton is what the Pentagrammaton is inside of. So in other words, we are inside of Yeshua, we are inside of Jesus, we are inside of Christ, all one inside of Christ. Pardon my, it's not perfect. We are inside of Yeshua, and Yeshua is inside of the Creator. Just another way to think of it. And if this is over your head, check out the last video. It'll make a lot more sense if you check out the last video. It explains it a little more in depth. And again, another way to imagine this, and this is all just an analogy. This is not meant to be taken literally. These are just thought experiments meant to help you understand, or me understand, our position as, I guess we don't need that arrow right now, our position as human beings and what that really means for us. So I imagine this as us in the third dimension, our higher self or our Christ self or our authentic self in the fifth dimension, and then God, creator, or conscious universe in the seventh dimension. So we are existing in the third dimension, our higher self is existing in the fifth dimension, and then God, creator, or conscious universe is existing in the seventh dimension. That's just a quick little recap of what was happening in the last video. Again, if you're not caught up on this information here, I strongly encourage you to check out the last video. It'll make a lot more sense. You'll get a lot more out of this video, and then you'll probably want to check that video out again after you watch this video because it'll make a lot more sense. So what we learned in the last video is that we all have 5 bodies. So the 5-pointed star represents our 5 bodies. Our fire element, or our spiritual body. So again, the 5-pointed star, as you learned in the last video, represents the 5 elements: fire, water, ether, air, and earth, which represent our spiritual body, our emotional body, our ethereal body, or our consciousness, or our self, our air, or our mental body, and earth, or our physical body. So our spiritual body is like the center of our energy, our faith, and our fear. Our emotional body is our feelings, our pain, and our pleasure. Our ethereal body is our consciousness. It's our connection to our oneness, our unity, our divinity. Our mental body is the storehouse of our beliefs, our thoughts, our words, habits, and behavior. And then our physical body is our actual physical body. It's our health, it's our connection, it's our groundedness, it's our personal security. So as I mentioned in the last video, what this diagram represents, if we have this 6-pointed star up here and us down here, is that we are a reflection of the above. So as above, so below. We are a reflection of God. God is a reflection or a projection of us. As above, so below. Now what we learned in the last video, just briefly, is that every choice we have, every experience we have in life, every choice we make, and every experience we have creates an imprint or an energetic signature in all of our bodies. So every choice we have, every choice we make, every experience we have creates an imprint on every one of our bodies. And every imprint or every signature that's stored in our body influences our future choices and experiences. And I'll explain more about what that means in a moment. So that might be, if you're taking notes, that might be an opportunity to write this down. So every choice we make and every experience we have creates an energetic imprint or signature on every one of our bodies, our physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, and our ethereal body. Every imprint or signature that stores inside of our bodies affects our future choices and experiences. So it's like kind of like an in-out thing. It's as within, so without. Every choice and experience creates an imprint, and every imprint influences our choices and experiences. It's a quantum concept. An imprint is sort of like a seed. If we've got a garden, we've got a little seed planted. Every seed, every imprint, every experience creates a seed that eventually grows into a choice or experience that creates fruits and experiences in our life. Every single choice or experience creates a seed inside of all of our bodies that eventually becomes it manifests into later choices and experiences. And this is every choice and experience we go through in life creates these imprints. Our bodies can be imagined almost like operating systems, sort of like a computer operating system. So if you have a computer, your computer has a CPU, it has an operating system. Well, each of these 5 bodies is like an individual operating system. So it's like we have 5 operating systems, 5 dimensions of our beings, 5 dimensions of our soul, if you wish, 5 dimensions of what we are. So we have 5 operating systems. And every imprint, which comes from our choices and our experiences, Let me make this into a simple diagram. So choices and experiences lead to imprints or signatures which act like programs in each of our energy bodies or each of our elements. In our spiritual body, mental body, emotional body, physical body, and our ethereal body. So our choices or experiences create imprints or signatures that act like programs in each of our bodies, in each of our operating systems. So I'll give you an example of some programs that we all experience in life. So let's imagine that you touch a hot burner. Okay, you touch a hot burner on your stove. Well, a program is created that if you touch a hot burner, you're going to experience pain. We're grateful for that program. We don't want to touch hot burners. We only usually have to touch one once to become very careful of hot burners from that point in the future. Another example is if we get bit by a dog as a young child, we create the belief that dogs can be dangerous and we avoid dogs, which can be a very helpful program for most of our life. If we learn how to tie our shoes, that's a type of a program. We're installing the skill set of tying our shoes, which acts as a program, and that program goes on to serve us for the rest of our life every time we tie our shoes. When we learn how to ride a bicycle, that's another type of program that becomes very valuable for us. It's a program that stores in our mental body, in our emotional body, in our physical body, and even our spiritual body, because it gives us the consciousness that we can ride a bicycle. Another example is just learning a song on piano or on guitar. That's another type of program that we're installing into our operating systems, physical body, mental body, emotional body, spiritual body, and our ethereal body and our consciousness, so that we can continue to call on that program later when we want to use it. Now the trouble happens when some programs become like viruses in a computer. So when a program becomes like a virus, then the program is no longer behaving the way that we want it to. So some examples are if we grow up and our parents teach us to be afraid of strangers. I'm not saying this is a good or a bad program. I have no opinion of it. If we grow up and our parents teach us to be afraid of strangers, that might be a valuable program as a child. But then when we grow up as adults, we might become antisocial. We might not put ourselves out there. We might not meet new people. So that fear of strangers, which was a helpful program as a child, as we grow up, it now becomes a virus. It's an outdated program that's now misaligned and might cause us suffering. Another example is fear of spending money. Maybe our parents grew up with a different mindset than what's applicable for our times now, our grandparents maybe. Maybe they had fears of spending money. Maybe they grew up in poverty. Maybe they grew up in really challenging situations. And then we create the belief that spending money is bad, or we shouldn't spend money, or we have to be careful spending money. And as a result, we live a life of scarcity. And living a life of scarcity doesn't bring us abundance, doesn't create the kind of life that we want to experience. So that program becomes a virus. Another example is the fear of rejection. We all have this natural inherent fear of rejection. It's hardwired in our brain. For thousands of years, humans lived in tribes. If we were rejected from our tribe, we could die, we could starve, we could be attacked by other tribes, we could be attacked by animals, we could freeze to death, we could die of exposure to the elements. Fear of rejection was a helpful fear, but now in our modern times, our fear of rejection can hold us back. It can have us living an inauthentic life. It can have us not putting ourselves out there, not speaking our truth, not standing up for what we believe in, and that program can become a virus. So here are some other examples. So let's imagine that as a child, you come home with a math test, you get 80% on your math test, and your parent or your mother or your father or your guardian says, well, why didn't you get 100? So instantly, a fear of rejection is triggered. That's your spiritual body, the fear of rejection. Here we go. A belief is created, I'm not good enough as I am. A feeling of shame or inadequacy, or again of guilt from not doing the best we can. And then now maybe tension is created in the physical body every time we take a test. And then our connection to ourself, or our connection to our own divinity, our own feeling of love and wholeness is now severed. So just that one experience of not getting 100% on the math test, and mom or dad says, well, why didn't you get 100? creates a fear of rejection, a belief that we're not enough, a feeling of shame, guilt, or inadequacy, a tension when we now are being tested or when our intellect is being challenged, and now we're disconnected from our sense of self. That's just one example. Another example is maybe our parents get divorced as a child. So our parents get divorced, we now create a fear of abandonment. Maybe our mother leaves or our father leaves at a young age. We create a fear of abandonment. That creates a belief that we don't deserve love, we're not good enough as we are, that our parents don't love us, or what have you. That leads to an emotional experience, again, of not being good enough, of shame, of guilt, of sadness, of loneliness. That can lead to physical stomach issues, it can lead to anxiety issues, it can lead to like butterflies in our stomach, knots in our stomach, ulcers, what have you, which can then again lead to a disconnection of self, a disconnection to our sense of wholeness. Another example is being sexually abused as a child. For sexually abused, maybe we create a fear of intimacy, a fear of being connected to somebody sexually. That can lead to a belief that there's something wrong with us. That belief can lead to experiences of shame or guilt, especially sexual shame or guilt. That can lead to tightness or tension in the genital areas, in the sacral area, which again can lead to a disconnection of self, a disconnection from spirit or from oneness. And these are just very basic examples, and I'm being very vague with the explanations, but that's just a brief idea of how our experiences can create imprints in all of our bodies, which can lead to serious issues as we develop and grow up. So every choice in an experience leads or reinforces an imprint. Every choice or experience either leads to or reinforces an imprint or program. And then it's like, what came first, the chicken or the egg? Because every imprint or program then goes on to influence every choice and experience. Every choice and experience leads to or reinforces a program. Every program, you see how it becomes an infinite loop. So that's why what I'm going to be sharing shortly about how we can start to reprogram these areas is so vitally important if we want to reach the stage of ascension, which I'll share with you shortly. Now, I understand that I'm moving quickly because there's a lot of material to cover, and I want to try to get this video done in under an hour. My last video was about 45 minutes, and there's more information to share in this video. Imprints affect us forever until they're fully resolved. They'll affect us forever until we experience a tremendous amount of suffering or until we transform the programs. Viral programs or viral imprints can lead to unwanted behavior. So again, let's imagine that example of the math test, and then now we feel like we're not good enough. So maybe one of two things happens. A child maybe grows up and behaves in a way where they become a perfectionist, and they try hard at everything, but they never feel good enough. Or maybe they go the opposite direction. They don't even try at all because they think they'll never be good enough even if they do. This unwanted behavior will continue to operate unconsciously for the rest of our lives, because 75% of our core programming, or in other words, our beliefs, are formed between the ages of 0 and 12. I just want to really pause on that for a minute because it's so important. 75% of our core programming is formed between the ages of 0 and 12 years old. That means 75% of your beliefs about health, happiness, finances, success, your morals, your values, and your spiritual truths were all formed in the first 12 years of your life. 75% of your core beliefs were formed in the first 12 years of your life. And we form those beliefs as a result of our experiences with our parents, our grandparents, our siblings, our aunts and uncles, our teachers, our society, the TV programs we watch, the movies we watch, the music we listen to. I don't know about you, but I was born in the 80s and 90s. And so the majority of my programming was based on my lifestyle at that time. I grew up in the lower class, so the majority of my beliefs about relationships and finances and health and happiness and my morals and values and my spiritual truths were all formed through the lens of this environment and surroundings I was in at that time in my life. So 75% of our core programming is formed in these years, and it continues to affect us for the rest of our life, especially if we don't change it. Now, there's something that's even a little bit scarier than that. Between 40 to 95% of our decisions or our choices every day are unconscious, meaning we don't know we're making them, and they're based on these beliefs. 40 to 95% of our decisions every day are unconscious, we don't know we're making them, and they're based on our core beliefs. So if you've ever experienced unconscious self-sabotage, if you keep dating the same type of person and the same type of relationship that ends up the same way, this is why. If you keep getting fired from a job, if you keep failing at your business, if you keep failing at your diet restrictions or your exercise plans or the goals that you set for yourself, this is why. 75% of your core programs were formed in your childhood, and between 40 to 95% of your decisions every day are based on those programs. If you don't change your programs, your life doesn't change. And that's just the hard truth that we have to accept. Now, there's good news about this, and this is the thing that I love to help my clients recognize, is that all of our so-called sinful behavior, all of the choices that religions and society tell us we have to feel bad for, is relative to our programming. Our sinful behavior comes from our programming. Every decision that you've ever made that's caused you or others pain is a result of the programming you inherited from your childhood. So I just want to give you permission right now to start forgiving yourself for everything you've ever done that you feel bad for. Everything you've ever done that has caused pain for you or someone else, you can start to let it go right now, because that programming came from the childhood that you received when you came into this world. Now, I'm not saying that you get to let go of responsibility. Those are your assignments. Those are your assignments. So your sinful behavior equals your programs, but that also equals the assignments that you're here to complete, I believe at least. This is what we might refer to as karma, ancestral karma, or the karma we come into this world to heal or to transform. All of our sinful behavior can be traced back to our unhealed, unprocessed childhood experiences. So our sinful behavior comes from our unhealed childhood. So again, would you get angry at a child who's been abused? Hopefully not. So likewise, maybe we could start to have compassion for ourselves and recognize that our sinful behavior comes from our childhood, and that we're all just children who have been hurt. And that in order to fully accept and forgive ourselves, the first thing we need is knowledge. We need understanding. We need to recognize what's really going on here. Most of your decisions, if you've ever gotten in an argument with a spouse, I certainly have, and you say or do something that you don't mean, that you wish you could have changed it, but you got triggered and you said something or you did something that you felt bad about, this is where it came from. It came from the unhealed childhood. Now the good news is we can heal it. The good news is we can start to transform this behavior and this childhood to create a life that we desire. We can start to let it go. And I'm going to start to share a little bit about that. So you are not your sins. You are not a sinner, so to speak, as some religions might have us believe, at least not in the way that we've been led to believe. We are just human beings doing our best. We came here with assignments. So I believe that our karma is our assignment, which leads to our purpose. I'm not going to get too much into purpose today because it's too big of a topic for this video. But our karma, when we heal it, or in other words, when we complete our assignments, it leads to our purpose, which ultimately leads to the life of our dreams. And I won't get into that too much today because it's a big topic, but that will likely be the next video that you'll see if you subscribe to my channel. So our outdated or damaged programming, my notes are down here if you haven't figured that out already. Outdated or damaged programming leads to misaligned behavior. So programming that is no longer applicable. So to give you an example, again, the child who's developed money scarcity because their parents said, don't spend all your money, save your money, don't just waste it, because maybe the kid's spending all their money on junk food, on treats and snacks. So the parents said, don't spend all your money or you'll grow up poor. So now the kid creates the belief, oh, I'll grow up poor, which really worked when the child was growing up because then they didn't spend all their money on treats. But now as an adult, they're not investing in themselves, they're not taking chances, they're not taking risks, they're not growing themselves, so they get stuck and trapped in this scarcity lifestyle. So what was once valuable programming has now become outdated or damaged programming, or AKA, which I like to say, viruses. So it leads to misaligned behavior, and then the misaligned behavior leads to unnecessary suffering. So again, scarcity, poverty, pain. I'm pretty sure I spelled unnecessary correctly there. I think it has two N's. I can't remember right now. So our outdated or damaged behavior or damaged programming leads to misaligned behavior, and our misaligned behavior leads to unnecessary suffering. Now, why this is important is because misaligned behavior leads to unnecessary suffering through the mechanism of the ancient alchemical proverb, as within, so without. As you learned in the last video, our external world, our external experiences, is a reflection and a projection of our internal world. So the misaligned behavior leads to unnecessary suffering because as within, so without. The programming we hold inside of us projects a reality outside of us through our words, through our habits, through our behavior, through our thoughts, through our beliefs, through our emotions. All of the junk that we carry inside of these bodies creates as within, so without. It goes up into the ether, into the six-pointed star, forgive my drawing of the six-pointed star, and becomes our reality. So ascension, which you'll learn in a moment, and I'll get into the stages very soon. Ascension is when our external world and our internal world become one. So ascension is when we've cleansed or purged or reprogrammed all of our misaligned programming. Ascension is when we've purged, reprogrammed, cleansed, and upgraded our misaligned programming. When all of our bodies are cleansed, when our spiritual, emotional, ethereal, mental, and physical bodies are cleansed, when our karma is liberated, we rise to a frequency of ascension, and we ultimately create what the ancients called many things, but heaven on earth is one. I'm not talking about the place that we're told we go to after we die. I'm talking about a place we can get to right here. The shamans who have changed my life in Peru call it absolute happiness. It's a state of happiness where we're no longer, our happiness isn't relative to our experiences. Our happiness is internally generated, so we're happy all the time. The ancient Kabbalists called it the end of correction. When we've finished correcting our programming, when we've finished correcting the programming inside of our bodies, the Buddhists sometimes call it enlightenment or the end of suffering. Again, I kind of think of enlightenment as the step before ascension, where we really can reach enlightenment here before we even finish the other bodies, because enlightenment is our recognition, our oneness, our recognition of self, but really it's liberation. It's also referred to in Qabalah as freedom and liberation. So enlightenment and neutralization of our karma, or transmutation of our karma, freedom and liberation. And those are basically the ideas. This is the state that we can get to when we start to cleanse these bodies. You might be asking, how do I know this stuff? Well, I can't tell you. You're going to have to figure it out on your own. Suffering tells us that something is out of balance. There is more healing to do. Suffering, pain happens in life. We experience pain, but suffering is optional. We don't have to experience suffering. Suffering is, in my opinion, perpetual pain, chronic pain, whether it's a mental pain, emotional pain, relational pain. It's when we're experiencing the same cycles over and over and over and over and over again. That's suffering. Well, that means that something is out of balance. Something needs to be healed. Something needs to be cleansed. Something needs to be purged. Something needs to be neutralized. There's karma that hasn't been fully liberated yet. When we've aligned, upgraded, neutralized, and cleansed our programming, we liberate our karma, and as a result, suffering stops. And as a result, we become one with everything. If you watch the last video, you'll understand mathematically, philosophically, Kabbalistically how we are already one with everything. But what happens when we cleanse our bodies is we become one with our Creator. We become one with the Tetragrammaton, one with God, Creator, or conscious universe. The elements in our being become in harmony with the elements of the universe, and as a result, we become one with everything. It's really that simple. So now we're going to get into the deeper ideas. We're going to start talking about the path itself. How can we actually get to this place? How can we actually get to ascension? That's what we're going to talk about now. So we're going to be talking about the path. You see that okay? It's probably going to be better if I do it like this. How about that? Yeah, it's a little better. So it's called the path. It can be called the path of many things. I call it the path of the Holy One, which I believe is our higher self. The path of the pentagram. The path of the higher self. The path of the authentic self. The path of freedom and liberation. And the path of ascension. There's really endless ofs, endless subtitles of the path. Many names. It's the path of the Holy One, the path of our higher self, the path of the pentagram, the path of the authentic self, the path of freedom and liberation, the path of ascension, and there's really endless names. Not really necessary to get into the ofs. We'll just call it the path, okay? Just the path. That's good enough. So this path is a path of healing our 5 bodies. So if you ask me, where did I find this? How did I learn it? Well, God told me. That's the honest truth. God showed me this path. As I was studying the deep esoteric wisdom that you'll see in the bookshelf behind this whiteboard, all the books, all the experiences I had, hundreds of ceremonies in Peru and Mexico and California and across Canada. God continued to speak to me and showed me how to find this path. That's the honest truth. When I asked God, well, what do I say if people ask me where it came from? Well, God said, well, tell them God sent you. Tell them God told you, and let that be enough. And that's the truth. So the path is a path of initiating a self-healing process. What we're doing with the path is initiating a self-healing process. And another way you could think of this is installing self-healing or self-correcting. Let's just go with. It's self-healing software. What I'm going to be sharing with you here is an actual, it's like a software program. When you install this into your mind through two mechanisms, knowledge therapy, oops. I don't know if I'm spelling that correctly right now. Knowledge therapy and practice, actual ritual and ritualistic practice. Two mechanisms, knowledge therapy, ritualistic practice. So in other words, daily practice or regular practice. This isn't going to make sense now. This will make sense when you watch this the second time around. The path is it's an initiation of a self-healing initiation. It's an installing self-healing software. So by understanding the ideas and then practicing the concepts, the path begins to initiate itself and self-healing begins to happen. In the Kabbalistic terms, they call this wisdom or knowledge therapy and understanding or ritualistic practice. Do then understand. What I'm going to be sharing with you in this video is a condensed version of something I released in another video series, which I'll put below. I released it a couple of years ago. I'll be totally transparent with you. I was going through a cannabis dependency at the time. I was going through tremendous deep healing, tremendous chronic pain that I was dealing with. So throughout the video, you might even be able to recognize that I'm high on cannabis while I recorded those videos. Total transparency, not high on cannabis anymore. But if you check the video series in this description, you'll be able to see it in a much deeper idea. It's about 4 or 5 hours long. I'm going to condense it today and just share the most important aspects of it. So the path is basically, it happens in 5 stages, one for each of the bodies. So we use the pentagram to visualize it. So the path is the path of the pentagram. So there are 5 stages. The first stage, actually I'm not going to get into the stages right now. I'll show you that in a moment. Let's see here. 5 stages, one for each body. They're initiated in order. As you'll see in a minute, there's an actual process of it. They get initiated in a particular order, but when they finish, they all finish together. All the bodies finish together. Again, this will make more sense the second and the third time you watch this video if you're really looking to learn this and understand it more deeply. So we're going to be healing or installing the software right now, or beginning the installation process to heal each of the bodies. So the fire body, aka the spiritual body, the air body, aka the mental body, and this is the order that we're going to be doing them in. The water body or the emotional body, the earth body or the physical body, and then the ethereal body or the consciousness. As we heal each of these bodies, we move further. We initiate the healing process for the fire or the spiritual body. We initiate the healing process for the air or the mental body. We initiate the healing process for the water or the emotional body. We initiate the healing process for the earth or the physical body. Then finally, we initiate the healing process for the consciousness. And then when the process all finishes, it all wraps up at one together and we reach ascension, which you'll learn about in a couple of minutes here. So each of these bodies, each of these elements has a set of characteristics or attributes or sort of an identity or what I call an archetype associated with it. So the fire body or the spiritual body carries the characteristics of the warrior knight. The warrior knight is the strong, willful, directed, focused, powerful being. That's a part of who you are. We all have these 5 archetypes. We all have these 5 elements. these 5 characters, which you're going to be learning about. The air body embodies the characteristics of the wisdom keeper, the magician, the shaman, the mage, the higher being that has all of that wisdom of the universe, the wizard, so to speak. The water element, or the water body, the emotional body, embodies the characteristics of the medicine healer. We all have a healer inside of us. We all have a medicine healer, a shaman, a magical healer that can do incredible healing on us. And then we have the earth element, which is like the Temple Priestess, our very disciplined, clean, humble priestess. And then finally, the ether element is our divine prophet. We all have the archetype or the characteristics of the divine prophet. So these are basically the 5 archetypes that we're developing as we heal these bodies. So we're going to develop our inner warrior knight. We're going to develop our inner wisdom keeper. We're going to develop our inner medicine healer. We're going to develop our inner temple priestess. Then we're going to develop our divine prophet. And when we develop all of these archetypes, we become the higher self, also known as the authentic self, the Christ self, the Krishna self, the Horus self, the ascended self, ascended master, many terms for this idea, all just different analogies. So these archetypes are also known as, you might have heard them as our guides, our angels in the Kabbalistic tradition. This is Archangel Michael, Archangel Raphael, Archangel Gabriel, Archangel Ariel, and Archangel Metatron maybe, or again the Christ self, the Yeshua self. This is our soul family, the Father, the Mother, the Son, the Daughter, or the Father, the Mother, the Brother, the Sister, the King, the Queen, the Prince, and the Princess. Lots of different names for these archetypes throughout mythology. Again, they're the elements: fire, air, water, earth. And again, when they're all fully integrated into our being, when we fully activated and initiated these archetypes inside of us, we become the one higher self. So we become the Christ self, we become the Buddha self, we become the Krishna self, the Horus self, whatever term you prefer. It's all to me, it all means the same thing. This is going to make sense in a few minutes. And again, you might want to watch this video more than once if you're particularly interested in learning these concepts at deeper levels. So now we're going to get into the actual stages. And there are 5 stages for each of the bodies that we're going to be talking about. And I'm going to draw the pentagram here as our diagram to kind of give you an idea of where we're at. Okay, and I'll just use the geometrical symbols. These symbols represent these different elements. We'll use them as reference. So this is fire, water, air, earth, and then we'll use the 6-pointed star. If you're creative, you can imagine that the 6-pointed star is all of the elements into one geometrical symbol. These are where we get these ancient elements. They all become that one symbol. Not important unless you're kind of nerdy about this stuff like me, then you might really love that. So the first stage, represented by the fire element, is the stage of awakening. I imagine this as here we're ignorant, and then we fall from grace, down on our hands and knees, and we begin our awakening. Now this is an intense stage. Initiating the spiritual body, the awakening stage, the healing of the spiritual body, is the activating of our warrior knight archetype. This is the, where where we separate the boys from the men, or the girls from the women, or the children from the adults. This is when we really start to recognize our divinity. And the first stage in the awakening process is surrendering to a higher power. And I mean really surrendering. I got down on my hands and knees. I don't know how many times when I was going through my absolute suffering. My brother once said, sometimes God lets you hit rock bottom so you know that God is the rock at the bottom. And that's what the awakening stage is about. It's rock bottom. Can't go any further down. Can't go any lower. It's when we start to surrender to a higher power. I've gotten down on my hands and knees in my shower, in my bedroom. I don't know how many times begging God, Creator, whatever's listening, Jesus, Buddha, anything that will listen, please help me. I need help. I need help. I need help. The first stage in this awakening, first step is surrendering to a higher power. And I'm just going to throw some concepts at you. To be honest, you're not going to be able to learn everything in this video. I'm just giving you an introduction, just a little bit of a summary or a preview of what this takes. This has been a long process for me. It's taking years. It takes some people a lifetime. Some people it takes many lifetimes. Okay, so be very patient with yourself if you're going to begin this process. So in the awakening stage, the first thing I had to do was start surrender to a higher power. And let me just tell you, this entire process cannot be done alone. We can't do it alone. We have to, there are parts in this whole path that require another human being. We have to share a lot of things with at least one other person. It doesn't have to be the same person every time. We have to share with at least one other person. And we have to share with God, Creator, or conscious universe. This will not work on our own. So the first step is surrender to a higher power. The second step is we have to start confessing. We have to start admitting. Now, confession might not resonate with you if you're somebody that doesn't resonate with Christianity or Catholicism or Judaism. I respect that. This works no matter what. It doesn't matter if you believe in those faiths. It doesn't matter if you agree with them. This process will work either way. We have to start confessing all of our sins, everything we've ever done wrong. I mean it. I mean, like, get a notepad and a piece of paper, write down everything you've ever done wrong. Everything. Confess everything. That's how we initiate the healing of our spiritual body. We have to confess everything. Everything. If we can't get that past that part, nothing else is going to work. Now, I'm not saying you have to do it all at once. You can do these processes on your own pace. Do them at what your intuition resonates with. I'm just sharing the process that I went through and how I understood and how God showed me to share it with the world. So we have to confess all of our sins, all of our sinful behavior. Remember, that behavior is not ours anyway. It's a result of our programming. It's a result of our childhood. By confessing it and sharing it, we're admitting to ourselves that we deserve repentance. We deserve forgiveness. So that's the first step. So we confess our so-called sins. The next thing is we confess our fears. What are we afraid of in life? What are we afraid of being alone? Are we afraid? Because this stuff, getting this information will be important in the later stages. If I confess my fears now, it's going to help me understand how I can heal them later. If I confess my sins now, it's going to help me understand them later on down the line. So this is just preliminary work. Next, we have to confess our suffering. How are we suffering in life right now? Is it chronic pain? Is it addiction? By confessing these things, we're not healing them yet. We're just getting honest with ourselves. We're surrendering. We're getting honest about what's happening in our lives. We're getting completely honest. We're admitting our sins, the things we've done wrong. We're admitting our fears and we're admitting our suffering. We're getting really honest about who we are and what we've been through in our life. We start to become, can you see the bottom? We're getting pretty low there. We start to become very intentional and willful. Fire represents the will. Awakening represents the will. The spiritual body is our will. It's our energy. So we start to become really intentional in life. We start to become really willful. We have to develop a sharp will. Our evil or our darkness will take us all astray. We have to become in control, or at least we have to become more willful and intentional about our actions and our behavior and our choices in life. Now, some of the ways that I've developed my warrior knight, or I've started to heal my spiritual body, besides the things I just shared with you, are practicing martial arts, practicing focus meditation, practicing yoga, strength training, exercise. All of these activities, these practices will develop our spiritual body. Exercise, archery, target practice, anything that requires focus and will. Again, if we imagine that our spiritual body is like a muscle, it's like an operating system that has to be tuned, then these practices will help us develop our warrior knight. Martial arts, focus, meditation, yoga, exercise, archery, target practice, they help us develop our will. They help us develop our mental strength, our spiritual strength. So that's a basic idea of the first stage of ascension, which is the awakening stage. Awakening. The next stage, once we hit rock bottom, we start to move back up again, and we move to our awareness stage. Now in this stage, we're starting to understand how we create our experience of reality. You might already be in this stage. Maybe you already went through awakening, or you initiated the awakening stage, and you're kind of over here now. You're starting to become aware of how you create your suffering in life. So this is the mental body. This is when we're actually beginning to heal our mental body, and we're developing the archetype of our wisdom keeper, our inner wisdom keeper. So in order to really start this process, the first thing we have to do, and everyone has to do this, I don't care how much you think you know. Believe me, this is not easy for me. I had quite an ego. We have to admit our ignorance. I had to accept that I don't know what I don't know. I used to think reality is physical. It's not physical. Quantum science tells me that nothing is real. I don't even know if you're real. I don't know if this room is real. I don't know if this phone that's recording me is real. I don't know if this board is real. It's all just experience. It's all just perception. I don't know if anything is real. You don't know if I'm real. You don't know if I'm just a reflection of your consciousness, waking you up, acting as that next guide that's helping you become aware of your creation of reality. How can you know? I had to admit my ignorance. I don't know what I don't know. The next thing is I had to start admitting, and this is not something we can do by ourselves. When I talked in the last stage about confessing your sins, confessing your fears, confessing your suffering, I mean to another human being. Write it all down, find a friend or a loved one or a priest or a coach or a shaman, and read this stuff to them. It's the only way it will work. You got to read it to God, creator of conscious universe as well. It's the only way it will work. Look at the 12 steps in AA or NA. They're based on the same ancient, esoteric, spiritual concepts. These are ancient ideas. These are not, I'm receiving this pattern, but these concepts are ancient. You'll find them in all spiritual systems. We have to admit this to another human being. It's the only way it will work. I developed an entire organization called The Tribe, full of people that do this work with each other. We have over 100 people all over the world right now, just beginning. We haven't even launched yet. We launch next month. It's December 2020. We launched in January. We've already got more than 100 people doing this work together. It's powerful. We can't do it alone. It's just not possible. We have to admit our ignorance. We have to admit our limiting beliefs. And again, this isn't something that we can easily do by ourselves. I can't see my own blind spots. I need somebody to help me see them. Limiting beliefs are like beliefs that I'm not good enough, beliefs that it's not spiritual to be wealthy, beliefs that addiction runs in my family, or that cancer runs in my family, or that sickness runs in my family. Those are all just limiting beliefs. Those are not necessarily true. Those are programs that we create in our childhood, which you learned about earlier. So I got to start admitting what are some of my limiting beliefs. And as I start writing them down, more will come out. But again, this is not something we can do by ourselves. I have to start admitting my limiting words. Do I say things like, I'm broke, I'm sick, I'm tired? What are these limiting words I use that are creating my reality? The ancient magician said, abracadabra, I create what I speak. My words are like magic spells. That's why we call it spelling. All of my words are like key commands on the computer that tell the universe how to create my experience of reality. What are my limiting words? How am I limiting my experiences? How am I living as a victim through my limiting words? I have to admit my limiting patterns or habits or behavior patterns. Do I smoke? Do I drink? Do I eat junk food? Do I avoid exercise? Am I procrastinating? Am I avoiding doing things that make me happy? What are my limiting habits? How am I limiting myself in life? I have to develop this skill, and again, this is an apprenticeship-based skill. I have to develop the skill of changing my beliefs. This is not something I can just learn in a book. It's something I have to find somebody to teach me. I've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars at this point between shamans and coaches and professionals that can help me understand how to change my limiting beliefs. It's a skill that we have to develop. If we want to move through the awareness stage, if we want to activate and start healing our mental body, if we want to develop the archetype of our wisdom keeper, we have to develop the skill of changing our beliefs. It's the only way. We'll never get past this stage if we don't develop that skill. It's just not possible. And so some of the ways that, and I know I'm moving fast, so again, I think that it would be best if you use this video as a point of reference, grab a pen and a piece of paper, go back through it again, start taking notes and see where you're at on the stages. Some of the ways that I start exercising and practicing the ritualistic practices to heal my mental body are through gnosis, through knowledge and wisdom, esoteric knowledge, spiritual knowledge, divine knowledge, developing a practice of studying esoteric spiritual knowledge, and I'm talking like Qabalah, Taoism, Tai Chi, yoga, shamanism, high magic. There are endless ways, tarot, there are endless alchemy, there are endless different practices. Judaism, Christianity, Catholicism, they're all esoteric practices. So starting to practice and study these esoteric systems helps us start unlocking these aspects of ourselves. If we don't understand the mechanisms of the universe, we can't heal ourselves. We can't reach the ascension process, the ascension stage. It's just not possible. Just studying in general, training the mind, meditation again, like I talked about earlier, deep breathing, binaural beats or brainwave entrainment or different tones, mantras, affirmations, lots of ways to start reprogramming our mindset. These are all just different ways that we can start developing our wisdom keeper and initiate the process of healing our mental body. The ego likes to say, oh, I'm already finished that stage. I'm already finished that stage too. Oh, I'm already here and here and there and there and there and here. Be careful. The ego's tricky. It likes to make us think, likes to validate us and make us think we're a lot further ahead than we are. So we got to be honest with ourselves. If we're experiencing suffering, we're not finished yet. There's more work to do. So, and I'm speaking for myself, believe me, I have so many times I was like, yes, I'm almost finished. If you watch my full series, The Path, I thought I was in the alignment stage back then. I wasn't there. I was maybe just in the middle of the acceptance stage, which we're going to learn about now. And this stage is no joke. So we fell from grace, we surrendered, we dropped down to our knees, we hit rock bottom in the awakening stage, we started to climb back up in the awareness stage. Now we're looking across to our own reflection in the acceptance stage. We're starting to accept, we're starting to accept the terrible secret, the inconvenient truth that we are responsible for everything. We have created our reality from the time we came here and even before that. It's the only way we get to ascension. Full acceptance. Total power requires total responsibility. The only way I'm going up is if I take responsibility for everything below it. No more blaming my parents, no more blaming my siblings, no more blaming society, no more blaming the elites, no more blaming anyone. Full responsibility, total responsibility is the only way to reach total power. And I know that a lot of people aren't going to like the sounds of that. Well, what about this? What about that? What about the secret societies? What about... Yeah, well, it's the only way. Every spiritual teacher worth their weight in gold will tell you. Acceptance is healing of the emotional body. Acceptance is purging the emotions out of the body. This stage, we are 75% water. This stage is ruled by the water element. The emotional body is ruled by the water element. I don't know if I can say that this is 75% of the process, but I bet you it's close to it. Most people get here and they never get out of this stage. They stay here forever. This is the hardest part. This is where we have to start to face all of our emotional pain. All of it, every bit of it has to be faced before we can get through here. So this is developing our medicine healer. As my coach told me, I can only take my clients as deep as I've gone myself. To develop our medicine healer, we have to become skilled at healing every aspect of ourselves, everything. You got unprocessed traumas you don't want to deal with. You got childhood stuff you don't want to face. That's fine, but you're going to stay in the third dimension. You're not going up. This is the only way. This is the only way. We got to get through this stuff. It's not easy, but we don't have to do it alone. We don't have to. So the first thing we have to do is we have to start admitting our unprocessed pain. Not easy to do. A lot of this, if you listen to my story in my book, in the description, The Rise of the Authentic Self, it's free on YouTube, where you can download the MP3s. Most of my stuff I didn't even know I had. I didn't even know most of the traumas that I had to heal. Or, I don't like to use the word trauma, I use that unconsciously. Highly stimulating events. I didn't even know I had them. I didn't even know I had them until 4 years ago. I mean, I kind of unconsciously knew they were there, but I didn't know what that meant and how important that was. I had to start on admitting my unprocessed pain. This is not something we can do by ourselves. We need other people to help us. It can be a really, really painful road to do by ourselves. I had to start admitting my self-judgments. And when I say painful to do by ourselves, what I really mean is that we can't do it ourselves. So it's endless suffering if we try to do it ourselves. See? Endless suffering. I had to start admitting my self-judgments. How do I judge myself? What are the judgments I have? What are the words I use? What are the thoughts that are running through my head that are leading me to look down on myself or think less of myself? And this one was tough because I had to start admitting my unrealized dreams and desires. A lot of my unrealized dreams and desires did not resonate with the people that I had in my life, the relationships I had. You know, my desire is to be the greatest spiritual leader who ever lived, and that's blasphemous in a lot of circles. My unrealized dreams and desires are lived totally free in society, without any of the societal pressures and expectations. I want to be led through my own connection to God, Creator, or higher self. Doesn't always resonate. I don't want to people please. I don't want to seek validation. I don't want to do things just to be polite. I want to do things because I choose to do them. Doesn't always resonate with people. But this is what I had to do. I had to start admitting my unrealized dreams and desires. I realized in the last ones I use A's and B's and 1s and 2s, but that's all good. I had to master self-healing. And this, again, it's an apprenticeship-based practice. It's not something I can do by myself. I started with Reiki and meditation and sound healing, and then I got to the real deep healing, the shamanic work, the coaching work, the deep emotional processing that can only be shared by somebody who's done the work themselves. So I had to master self-healing. I had to master self-expression, learning how to really express how I felt and what I thought and who I really was and my true authentic self. I had to master the art of communicating my needs and feelings, something I was not raised to understand. I didn't even know that I had needs. I didn't even know what my feelings could be. I read the book Nonviolent Communication by Marshall Rosenberg and realized, oh wow, I've got a whole list of needs and feelings I didn't even know I had. How could I possibly communicate them and ask for them if I didn't even know I had them? It wasn't possible. I had to learn about them. And then finally I had to... what is it here? This is the tough one. I had to express my truth and live authentically. And if you listen to my book, The Rise of the Authentic Self, there's not much that I didn't put in there. I put my most shameful, embarrassing, guilty, I put everything in there. I had to express my truth. I had to live authentically. I had to live aligned with the truth of what I am. I couldn't hide myself anymore. I had to come out about my beliefs. I had to come out about the things that are most important to me. So this is the acceptance stage. Again, this is not an easy stage. This is the majority of the work. Most of the work is done in this acceptance stage. But once we start to get through that work, we move down to the alignment stage, and this is where things start to get a little lighter. I'm not going to say it's easier. It's not easier, but it's a little lighter, a little more fun. We get out of the feeling of being crazy. I'm going to be totally honest with you. I can't count how many times in this path that I thought I was going nuts. Okay, I thought I was going completely crazy. I said it to friends, I said it to counselors, I said it to coaches, I said it to my shamans. I thought I was going crazy in a lot of this. So if you ever feel that way, you're not alone. Believe me, you're not alone. It happens to a lot of us. That's why most people don't get through this stage. Doing that deep work, facing those deep emotions, I was a professional mixed martial arts fighter for 8 years. I fought 21 grown men in a cage. This humbled me time and time and time and time again. Over and over and over and over and over again, it humbled me. Okay, this is not easy work. This is mastery work. This is work for masters. Ascension is a mastery state. If you're not intended, if you don't have the intentions of being a spiritual master, you might as well shut the video off now. This is not for you. What I'm showing you right now is for spiritual masters. There are rabbis, there are priests, there are leaders that have been doing work for their whole lives. They're not here. Okay, this is superhuman stuff right here. Alignment is the healing of the physical body. So this is where things start to get, like I say, a little lighter, still challenging, and this is where we're developing our Temple Priestess. The Temple Priestess is, and I'm not saying I finished this stage yet. I would say, I've said it before, I'm not even going to say it. I've had lots of glimpses of this stage. I've had lots of glimpses of the finish line, but that's all I'm going to say. I'm going to remain humble. This is the stage of humility. In another video, I'll tell more about these archetypes: courage, compassion. This is what we're developing by healing these parts of ourselves: wisdom, humility, and then, you guessed it, love. So when we start to heal our spiritual body, when we move through the awakening process, we start developing real true courage. When we move through the awareness stage, the healing the mental body, we start to develop real wisdom, true inner wisdom. We go through the acceptance stage and we start to heal our emotional body. We develop compassion for ourselves and others. We start to heal our physical body and we go through the alignment stage. We develop humility. Humility. If you don't know what this means, look it up. This is the hard part. This is the part for me. This is the hardest part. This is the hardest part of the game for me. And then love becomes the byproduct of all of this. So as the Temple Priestess, this is where we start taking action. Alignment, the earth element, is the manifestation of fire, water, and air manifested into physical reality. Now we start putting our money where our mouth is. We start taking action. We start living our truth instead of just speaking it. Okay, we start living our example. So the first thing we got to do, we got to create a wellness plan. We got to clean the body. We got to start detoxifying. If you've been smoking and drinking and filling your body with junk food and fast food, you're not going anywhere until you get past this stage. We got to create a wellness plan. We got to stick to it. And I'm not saying I'm perfect. I'm still going through my process as well. It's a continual process. It's like one step at a time. One step at a time. One little win at a time. It's not about perfection. We'll get there when we get there. But it's about taking the steps. Creating a wellness plan. The next thing I had to do is create a discipline plan. So daily disciplines: meditation, yoga, tai chi, martial arts, exercise, prayer, visualization, journaling. Create a daily discipline plan. One habit at a time. My friend Anthony is really passionate about tiny habits, 10 minutes at a time. If you can't do an hour or 2 hours in the morning, start with 10 minutes. When I started this, I could only do 10, 20 minutes in the morning. Now I have a whole 2 to 3 hour routine every day in the morning. Every day. I wasn't raised to think I would ever have that. My dad worked and we were on social assistance outside of that. I didn't know that I was going to be able to create this in my life. Now I'm there. I get to spend 2 or 3 hours every day doing my work. Create a wellness plan. Create a discipline plan. Create a financial plan. How are you going to create financial freedom for yourself? We can't reach ascension if we got to work 60 hours a week, 50 hours a week, 40 hours a week to pay our bills. That's not freedom. This stage is a stage of freedom. And freedom doesn't happen working like a slave for somebody else. We gotta find freedom. That's part of the job. So create a financial plan. If you are at this stage, if you've really gotten through all this stage, then you've already worked with a coach, you've already worked with a shaman, you've already developed your will and your intention. And doing these things it's just work now. If you're at this stage, you're good. If you're wondering, well, how can I create a financial plan? Well, hire a coach. Develop strong will, practice martial arts, develop focus, develop compassion for yourself, have patience, learn to express yourself authentically. You'll find all the abundance you need to create a financial plan. This is the manifestation of all the other work coming into reality now. We got to create an action plan. What are the big actions that you need to take to make the most amount of impact in your life? These are not things I've been able to do by myself. Again, a coach, I'm always working with coaches. Now at the tribe, I'm surrounded by coaches. That's why we developed the tribe. You can learn about it in the description. The tribe is a place where we're all superhuman. We're all living our potential and continually rising our potential all the time. I've got coaches that surround me in my life. I live with a coach. My girlfriend is a coach. I'm surrounded by coaches who challenge my thinking, help me develop disciplines, help me develop wellness, detoxify my body, take the one big action that's going to create the most amount of impact in my life. That's the game. It's not about filling my life with a bunch of extra stuff. It's about getting real honest about where I'm at. And then the next thing, and this was not easy for me, is to heal addictions. You know, as you'll learn in my book, if you listen to it, in my fighting career, I used heavy drugs like cocaine and ecstasy and drank almost every weekend that I wasn't fighting. I didn't develop any addictions to those drugs. I wasn't addicted to alcohol. I wasn't addicted to cocaine. I wasn't addicted to ecstasy. I became addicted to food and cannabis. That's what reminded me of my mom. My mom smoked weed when I was growing up, and she always gave me and my brother junk food. That was the source of my addictions. Healing my addiction to food and cannabis was far more challenging than healing addictions or healing my habits of using cocaine, alcohol, and heavy drugs, which I haven't done in a very, very long time now. But cannabis and food, those were the challenges for me. They were the hardest addictions. Maybe it's for you, it's social media. Maybe it's gambling. Maybe you're a sex addict or a porn addict. We got to heal the addictions. We have to tame our bodily impulses. We have to become the master of our domain. Our body is like a beast. It's like an animal. We got to tame the beast. Alignment is about taming the beast. And when I say the beast, I mean the beast. You know, the upside down pentagram. The beast that we all have it. We've got the Christ and we've got the devil inside of us. We have to become the master of our domain. We have to tame the beast. We got to do that. We got to humble ourselves if we want to move up to the ascension stage. And then once we do that, once we do all the things I just mentioned, we start to align ourselves with our higher self. Because this is the realm of the higher self. The ultimate goal of the alignment stage is to align our lives with the higher self, with the higher realms, with the higher awareness. And last but not least, here we are, we're at the ascension stage. As you can see, this is not easy work. It takes a warrior. You got to be a superhuman warrior to move through this work. The ascension stage is healing our consciousness, healing the ethereal body, developing our inner divine prophet. We've all got it. We are all the Christ. We're all the Buddha. We're all Krishna. We're all Atman. Yeshua Elohim. We're all the divine prophet. And to heal our consciousness, the first thing we really have to do, back to the numbers again, letters, numbers, dots, we have to experience miracles. And when I say miracles, I mean miracles. If you don't know what a miracle is, you haven't experienced one yet. That doesn't mean it's not possible. Doesn't mean it's not possible. When I say miracles, maybe I'm talking about synchronicities, thinking about someone and they call you. Think of a song that comes on the radio. Those are little miracles. Bigger miracles, miracles of healing, miracles of transformation, miracles of insight. Bigger healings yet, miracles of telekinesis. Things moving, windows shaking, things moving on your altar, things moving in your life, moving around right in front of you. Miracles of the weather, rainstorms, thunderstorms, windows shaking from the wind, whirlwinds. These are real miracles. We're all capable of performing these miracles. Well, I don't perform them. God performs them through us. We aren't the miracle workers, but we can be the conduits of those miracles. So we have to experience miracles. We have to find a miracle worker. Now for me, my first experience of miracles was in Peru. Actually, that's not true. My first experience of miracles was here in Canada when I was initiated into the esoteric sciences. The person who initiated me showed me the first smaller miracles, miracles of the room moving, miracles of channeling, miracles of feeling my body levitate and lighten. Then there were miracles, even bigger miracles of healing I experienced in Peru. I say this not to impress you or to try to brag. I say this with humility as God is my witness. Miracles are real. We must experience miracles to really connect to our divine prophet. Miracles open up our faith in the impossible. We have to develop a spiritual truth That is truth to ours. This is my spiritual truth. This is the truth that God has given me to share with the world. Our truth is also our teaching. Part of reaching the ascension stage is sharing our teaching with others. The ancient alchemists called it multiplication and replication. I have to multiply and replicate myself by sharing my spiritual truth with others. I have to share the gifts that I've been given. They're not mine to keep. The master says you don't light a lamp and put a blanket over it. You light a lamp and put it on a rooftop for all to see. I have to multiply and replicate myself. I have to inspire, not convince or preach. That is a impeding free will. I can't preach or try to convince people of this. That won't work. That creates the opposite effect, and I create more suffering for myself. That's a sign. If somebody tries to preach, they're still in this stage. They haven't gotten out of that stage yet, or maybe even this stage. Or maybe even this stage. A person who tries to preach and convince others is not somebody who's done the work. They're still in the process. And that's maybe my judgment, but that's what I've received. That's what I've been told. We have to join or, can you see? Yeah, I can still see. Join or form a tribe. I did both. I've joined a number of tribes and I formed a tribe, literally called The Tribe. You can learn about it in the description of the video. I'm going to start these over again. I hope you've gotten lots out of that so far. I had to sit in ceremony. Now that could mean for you sitting in a shamanic ceremony in Peru. Maybe it means sitting in a breathwork ceremony in California. Maybe it means sitting in a high magic ceremony somewhere else in the world, experiencing the true magic that exists in the world. And I mean magic. I mean magic. I'm not talking about I was going to say witchcraft, but there's nothing wrong with witchcraft. I'm not talking about sorcery. I'm not talking about manipulating people. I'm not talking about black magic. I'm not talking about curses or hexes. I'm not talking about trying to steal your neighbor's wife or trying to steal your best friend's car. I'm not talking about that kind of magic. I'm talking about high magic, white magic, magic of the inner world. And then finally, a spiritual pilgrimage. My intuition's telling me to share a little note about witchcraft and what that means. Witchcraft really just means magic, but there are really 3 types of magic. You'll learn that in my book, The Rise of the Authentic Self. There's black magic, the magic of duality, the upside down pentagram, the opposite of this pentagram. This is with the 1 point on top, that's unity. 2 points on top, that's duality. Black magic is the magic of duality, me versus you, the competitive plane. That brings nothing but pain and suffering. And if a person can somehow avoid the pain and suffering in this life, they're going to get it when they finish this. For this is what I've been told, just what God tells me. And there's gray magic, that's like law of attraction, trying to attract money, trying to attract wealth, trying to attract things you like. It's neutral. It's neither good nor bad, it's just neutral. Then there's white magic, healing myself so I can bring those things to me naturally and easily. The true spiritual fulfillment, the true spiritual wealth, which is inner happiness. White magic is the ultimate magic. With white magic, all other things come to us. And so witchcraft is neutral, depending on what kind of magic a person practices and the intentions they have behind their magic. Now, witches have gotten a bad rap in society and Hollywood and all of that, but it's not true. Witches and shamans are synonymous. Witches and magicians are synonymous. It's about intention. Magic is all about intention. I'm not going to get into magic too much here other than what you're seeing here, but there's an entire practice that can make this process rapid. And I mean rapid. Years of healing in very short periods of time. Only by initiation, though. You have to work with somebody who can take you there. So this is the Ascension Stage. Now, the Ascension Stage is the stage, again, of absolute happiness. Just happy all the time. Happy no matter what's going on. Happy no matter what's happening in the world. Also called heaven on earth. And I mean heaven on earth. Imagine a world where all of your true heart's desires are coming true. That's what's available to you. It's available to you. It's yours. It's been given to you. When you finish this work, it's yours. End of correction. End of suffering. Freedom and liberation. You name it. promised land. We all deserve it. It's our birthright. It's the kingdom. We all have our own kingdom waiting for us. There's no competition. There's nobody trying to stop you, trying to take your throne. You're a king, you're a queen, you're a ruler of your own world. You're a child of God, you're a child of Creator, child of the Holy One, the higher self, Christ, Krishna, Horus, Apollo, whatever you want to call it. That's what you are. At least that's my belief. You shouldn't believe anything I say. Find your own truth. This is the realm that's available to all of us. This is our gift. This is what we came here to find. This is what we came here to receive. That's the path of ascension. That's a simple way to understand ascension. It doesn't seem very simple because there's a lot of work to understand it. Like I said, I condensed this information from a 5-hour presentation, which you can find in the description below, and years of work. And even that description, even that 5-hour presentation, 4 hours or whatever it is, still doesn't even come close to really understanding this work. It's only something somebody can understand if they're guided through it themselves. I have clients I've guided this through. I have tribe leaders I've guided through this process, and I'm continuing to guide through this process. It's lifelong work. If you want to learn more about my path and the work that I've done on myself, you can learn about it in my audiobook below, The Rise of the Authentic Self. You can download the MP3s in the description, or you can listen to it on YouTube. The chapter descriptions are in, timestamps are in the description of the video. If you'd like to join us in the tribe, it's free to join. We have a free community membership. You can check that link out below as well. We have daily engagement questions, we have resources, we have content, and we even have live events that get you connected with the rest of the tribe. If you're looking to take your path to the next level, if you're looking for somebody to take you on that journey, I work with people on a one-on-one basis. It's at least a year to start, and it's 25 grand just to start for that year. Serious applicants only. You can send me an email. My email address is in the description. But let me tell you, this will be harder than anything you've ever done in your life. It'll be more challenging than anything you've ever done. So please, only apply, only contact me if you're serious. Serious applicants only. Otherwise, check out the tribe. If you're just starting out, we've got lots of resources. We've got online coaching, we've got community events, networking events, content, blog articles, videos, a whole lot more, live webcasts that can get you connected starting at nothing. You don't even have to pay anything to join. I've got lots of resources on my YouTube channel. Look through the videos, go deep into this work. I'm telling you, it is worth the time. It's worth the investment. It will change your life. Thanks for watching. This is the simple way to understand ascension. This is the path of the Holy One, the path of the pentagram. If you've enjoyed this material, share it with somebody you think could benefit. Like the video, comment below, let me know what you think. Share it with somebody else, subscribe to the channel, and remember, pay it forward. Thanks very much for watching. Take care.